to the 101 on Sports. I'm Randy Karraker. Great to have you with us here on Fox 2. And coming up, it's the third annual Ascension Charity Classic at Norwood Hills Country Club. It'll be held on the 8th, 9th, and 10th of September at Norwood. And joining us from Ascension is Nick Ragone, who has put together this incredible tournament that has really turned into a key part of the St. Louis sports calendar. Nick, it's good to see you. Thanks for stopping by.
Always fun to talk to you, Randy.
I want to start with this because this is year 3 of the tournament, and it's become, like I said, a really important part of what we do. But what was the genesis of the Ascension Charity Classic? How did we get here?
4 years ago, October 8th, 2019, to be exact, not that I memorized that, we came up with this idea that it'd be neat to have a professional golf event in North St. Louis County, not traditionally where you would have golf, and that all the proceeds would stay in North County and go to charities that serve the community. At the time, Ascension was in the process of rebranding itself, and we wanted a kind of a live signature event to bring that brand to life. And I thought, no better way than to do it here in St. Louis, do it in North County, do it at Norwood, and have all the proceeds go to the Urban League, Boys and Girls Club, Marygrove, and many, many other charities. As I've said from day one, Randy, the golf is secondary. The golf kind of takes care of itself. You got world-class players. That takes care of itself. Mm-hmm. The whole impetus behind the event was to give back and have a sustainable way to give back to charities that serve the community. And that's what the model's been about, and it's worked.
With that being said, was there a tournament somewhere that you have tried to emulate?
On the big tour, the Tour Championship at East Lake was a model we looked at. And we actually went down and visited that. And I talked to some of the leadership around East Lake. And for those not familiar, East Lake was an underserved part of Atlanta. And 20 years ago, the PGA Tour put an event there, the Tour Championship, and they said, we're going to make a commitment and invest. And it's become the gold standard, I think, for helping turn around communities. And so I'm surprised that more PGA Tour events or PGA Tour Champion events haven't followed that model. And I was kind of shocked. And when we went down there and visited, we didn't copy it exactly, but the idea of putting an event in an underserved area and making sure the proceeds stay there was really novel.
So with that being said, I think I have a pretty good idea, but what are you most proud of with this tournament so far? And especially with the records that you set, I know that that's a big thing, is that you've done things at the Ascension Charity Classic that nobody else in America has done.
Well, as you know, and people who know me, I'm competitive, and we like winning. And at that press conference on October 8th of 2019, I said, within 5 years, we wanted to be one of the most charitable events on PGA Tour Championships and one of the best attended. Well, in the first year, we set a record for attendance. And in the second year, we are now the most charitable event. So we've exceeded even my timeline. And I take pride in both of those things. Obviously, being the most charitable is the most important thing. And the fact that we've given away $2.5 million playing 2 events so far, and we're going to top $4 million this year, I think, total. Again, the most charitable event on PGA Tour Champions. And then to have the most attendance is really cool because I think it speaks to the St. Louis sports landscape. I think it speaks to the fact that people love giving back. I think it speaks to the fact that, Randy, in St. Louis, we punch over our weight. We're the best sports fans in the country. And so that all comes together nicely.
If somebody would have told you on October 8th of 2019, okay, when we get to September of 2023, you're going to have the best attended event and your corporate participation is going to increase in year 2 and in year 3, what would you have thought?
I wouldn't have thought it was impossible. I didn't want to predict that, but I felt it in my bones when we were, I use the analogy when we were selling the tournament in 2019, it was like pushing a boulder uphill, right? It needed a lot of energy. And when I first met with a lot of leaders, there was a lot of, as I like to say, arched eyebrows and quizzical looks, because it was like, okay, what are you trying to do? You're putting a golf tournament in Norwood. All the money stays in Norwood. It goes to, or North County, it goes to charities. And there was a lot of quizzical looks. And after the first year, it's now like pushing that boulder downhill. And, this event wouldn't happen were it not for our great corporate sponsors. Last year, we had over 200 partners. We built out the entire back 9, which on the Champions Tour, usually it's 17 and 18. We had so many partners. Worldwide Technology stepped up on year 1 and really became a great partner. Same with Missouri Tourism, an excellent partner. And so we've been blessed. We have more build out on the tournament than any Champions Tour event. And that's because A, fans love coming, and B, we have so many corporate partners.
And there are a lot of great aspects. There are a lot of great places to be on the course that we're going to talk about it as we go along here tonight. But Nick, one of the other aspects to this tournament, in talking to golfers in the first couple of years, the golfers love the way they are received here in St. Louis by the tournament and by the fans.
They absolutely love it, Randy, and it's true. In year one, I talked to Ernie Els, I talked to Jim Furyk, Bernard Langer, and to a person they said, wow, Nick, this reminds me of when we played on the big tour that had that feeling, the attendance, the build out. And it was funny, Justin Leonard played, he turned 50 last year, he played, it was his second event. And this year at our media day, he had mentioned to the media, he said he couldn't believe it the first year when he played on that Friday and he made the turn at 10, and he started seeing the build out on 11, and he thought, well, that's got to be an aberration. I guess maybe that's a good spot. And then he got to 12 and he saw the build out in 13 and 14. And then he realized the entire back nine. And afterwards, I remember him that round afterwards telling me, he goes, it felt like we were playing on the big tour. And he reminded me, and these guys all remind me, they were all superstars. They loved it back in the day, especially the ones that played in the Tiger era, to play in front of these huge crowds, the build out, the buzz, the noise, the energy, momentum. And they absolutely love having that feeling.
Is there anything more that you could do when you talk about the golfers being so impressed? And I've always thought that it looked like a regular tour event. Is there anything more that you could do?
Well, we can't build out the front nine. The PGA Tour Champions doesn't encourage that. It's trickier. And so this year, the entire back nine will be built out. We have 3 days of Pro-Ams. Usually it's 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday. We have 3 days. We sold out our Thursday Pro-Am weeks ago. We have a couple spots left on Wednesday, and if anybody wants them. But for us now, it's trying to find additional things to do. We've added clinics. We have our Tuesday, our RSM putting challenge, which also gives back to charity. And so we're trying to find other things. We've had our APJ Classic, which just finished a few weeks ago, hugely successful. So we're building it out that way. But it's exceeded my wildest expectations.
I want to touch on a couple of things. Number one, you brought up the APGA, and that's the Advocates Professional Golfers Association, and it helps minorities get closer to getting onto the PGA Tour. And I mentioned that the Champions Tour golfers that loved the St. Louis stop, the APGA golfers say, this is number one, and it's not even close.
It's not even close. The APGA is a wonderful organization. It's really, it's one thing to say you want to grow the game of golf. We've heard that a lot, and you want to make it more diverse and inclusive at the elite ranks. It's another thing to do things, and do things is harder than talking. And last year we committed to an APGA event. It's now their signature event. We had our second event. It was fantastic. And they play at courses like Valhalla, Baltusrol, Torrey Pines. They play at some great events. They said to a person, they get treated better here by the membership at Glen Echo, by the staff, by the team, than anywhere in the country, and they absolutely love it. And I think, the PGA Tour is now in the infancy of starting a relationship with the APGA to give it developmental status so that their winners get status onto Korn Ferry and eventually make it to the PGA Tour. And I think, Randy, in a couple of years, when we see increased participation on the PGA Tour by underserved communities, that they're going to look back and say St. Louis started that, and I'm really proud of that.
One of the things that I've really enjoyed over the first couple of years, too, is your Legends series. I think that especially drawing St. Louisans from to athletes from other sports to the golf course really was a brilliant idea.
That was such a big hit. In the first year, we had Nicklaus and Watson playing, and you can't get any better than to inaugurate an event with the greatest of all time and Tom Watson, and it was such a treat to have him here, and Coach Berube and Ozzie. And then last year, we brought in Lee Trevino and Hale Irwin and Nancy Lopez, and again, I think people love seeing the history of the game. And in fact, Hale and Nancy are coming back this year. Nancy called me up and said, I just want to come back. And so she's going to be there. And then we're going to have some of our blues legends versus current blues players. We're going to do a kind of legends versus current game. And people love that. They love, it's funny, the year we had Nicklaus and Watson, this is true. And, Nicklaus, the greatest of all time, we had 10,000 people following that one hole. Mm-hmm. Mind you, that's more than most Champion Tour events get on a Saturday. But I tell you, more people were screaming for Ozzie than for Nicklaus or Watson and Berube, but Ozzie in particular. And there is such a deep, visceral connection to our sports legends here in St. Louis.
And it was amazing in talking to Ozzie about it that he was actually nervous. And you if you're playing golf in front of a crowd, you're going to be nervous. But here's a guy that's played on the highest stage in the World Series.
Both he and Coach were nervous, and Coach laughed and he said he was visibly nervous on the first tee, and then he's like, I can handle people checking me and hitting me into the boards, but just sitting in front of a white ball in front of crowds. And Ozzie said something similar. It's like, I can handle any play on the field, but it's an awesome experience, and these guys appreciate it. And last year, we had Ryan O'Reilly out there, and he hit it a mile. I think fans just love seeing their sports heroes in a different environment out there, and you could tell by the attendance.
It was fabulous. Nick Ragone from the Ascension Charity Classic with us here on the 101 on Sports on Fox 2. Coming up, how can you get involved and how can you watch this great event? Nick will tell us next on Fox 2. Welcome back to the 101 on Sports here on Fox 2. I'm Randy Karraker. Great to have you with us. Joined tonight by Nick Ragone from the Ascension Charity Classic. Coming up, and you'll be able to enjoy it the weekend of the 8th, 9th, and 10th. But, Nick, so much going on the week before, leading up to the golf tournament itself, and that includes the Pro-Am. You mentioned it earlier. People with still a few spots available can go to ascensioncharityclassic.com.
Yeah, you get tickets. Our ticket sales are tracking ahead of the first 2 years, which is great. We have our Club 314, which is really our VIP experience on the 17th hole, which I have to say has turned into Party Central, and it's a great way to spend 3 days. And then, we have 3 days of Pro-Ams, unlike most events that have 1 or 2. And Thursday, our official Pro-Am is completely sold out, which is a lot of fun. And we have a couple spots left on Wednesday, so hurry up, go to ascensioncharityclassic.com. And for those, Randy, that haven't played a Pro-Am on Champions Tour, it's about the best experience you can have because you're inside the ropes playing with elite golfers. They're giving you playing tips. They're talking to you. On the big tour, those guys are notoriously grinding for a living. When they get out to the Champions Tour, it's really about hospitality, talking to people, entertaining, and it's a great experience.
And they have such great personalities. And like you said, there's a lot of intensity when you get on the regular tour. But here, they know they're going to be there for 3 days. That everybody wants to play great, but it kind of feels like sometimes if you're an average to below average golfer and you're playing with a pro on the regulars tour, like you're dragging the guy down. The Champions Tour guys never make it feel like that.
They never do. It's funny. Last year I played with David Duvall, and I was nervous, and he looked at me and said, "Nick, I've seen every possible swing and every possible shot after 25 years on the tour, so there's nothing you can do," which put me at ease. But they really get it. It's the ultimate mulligan in life for these guys. They play 3 days, no cut. So they know that, my business is done Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and their business is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And as one of the pros told me, we don't get to Friday, Saturday, and Sunday without you having a good Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So they get it.
You are somebody who is always around the course during the course of the weekend. I have really enjoyed you. You mentioned Club 314 and the Skybox on 18. There's so many ways to watch it. What's your favorite way to watch the tournament?
Last year I finally actually walked the course a little bit. And down on 11, there's a spot on 11. It's actually the Ameren viewing station. Ameren, a great partner, where you could kind of see 3 holes. I think you see 11, 12, and 13. And it's a fabulous spot. It's a great little part on the back 9, and they have this viewing station. It is fantastic. And so this year I'm going to go down there a little bit and really take it in. Year one I was so busy I don't remember anything but Delsing hitting our first shot, which was great. And last year, the back 9 on Sunday, I made a point of walking in with the leaders and watching it. And this year I'm really going to make a point of actually having a fan's experience and walking the course.
So I want to talk about the past and the future here in our next couple of minutes. Number one, you mentioned Jay Delsing, who's going to join us in just a few moments, hitting the first shot. Do you have, aside from that one, a favorite moment from the first couple of years?
That's the thing I remember the most. The other thing I remember was right before it, we had our first ceremonial shots. They were hit by a boy and girl from the Boys and Girls Club. And that morning, it was Friday morning, it was perfect weather. And, until you get there, you don't know if people are going to come. And I'll tell you a funny story. Thursday was our official Pro-Am. I had forgotten that we opened it up to the public. And so it was about 11:30 in the morning. I was with the commissioner of PGA Tour Champions in the dining room. And somebody came in and said to me, we have about 5,000 people on the grounds. And I'd forgotten we opened it up to the public. And I kind of looked at the commissioner. I said, that seems like a lot of people. And he goes, Nick, that'd be a good Saturday at most stops. And I thought, wow, Randy, this is going to be a good week.
Amazing. And here we are, year 3 already. Where would you like to see this tournament go? If we get to year 5, what would you like to see it be?
Well, in a couple of years, a guy named Tiger turns 50, so I'd like to see him play here. And I've told this story a couple times publicly, but I chatted with Tiger personally back in November for about 6 or 7 minutes, and he was very inquisitive. He knew about Norwood. He knew about the history of the event. He said the best experience he's ever had as a PGA Tour player was at Bellerive in 2018.
Wow.
And he said, "When's your event?" And I said, "September." And he goes, "Perfect. My allergies are good that time of year in St. Louis." And he said, "Get my cart ready. I turned 50 in 3.2. This was at a couple of years ago, 3.2 years. And later, I chatted with him again that evening, and he again said, "Get my cart ready when I turn 50." So I'm holding Tiger to that. When he turns 50, he'll be in St. Louis.
That's fantastic. Hey, thanks for what you do for the community and bringing the Ascension Charity Classic here. And charity is the operative word, and you can get tickets at ascensioncharityclassic.com. It's always good to see you, Nick. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Randy. See you in a couple weeks.
You bet. Nick Ragone from the Ascension Charity Classic. He mentioned that Jay Delsing hit the very first shot ever at the Ascension Charity Classic. And Jay will join us coming up on the 101 on Sports here on Fox 2. Welcome back to the 101 on Sports here on Fox 2. Great to have you with us. And now we turn our attention to the players. Jay Delsing, St. Louisan, the first person ever to swing a club at the Ascension Charity Classic, and he'll be participating on the 8th, 9th, and 10th. And Jay, first of all, thanks for joining us. Second of all, you've played a lot of great courses around the country, and not that we're going to put Norwood to the level of some of the U.S. Open or PGA sites, but for a Champions Tour regular event, how good is Norwood?
Oh, it's very good. Well, first of all, Randy, I love you. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you.
Listen, there are 4 golf courses in town that have hosted major championships. Bellerive, obviously, Old Warson, St. Louis Country Club, and Norwood. So the 1948 PGA Championship was at Norwood. Norwood is a good course. It's not on par with an Oakmont, a Pebble Beach, clearly.
Right.
But it's old school, and that's one of the things that the players like about it. You walk off of a green, and the tee is not very far away. The next tee isn't very far away. And just the way that the golf course flows, it's a lot of fun to play. It's challenging because the greens are difficult, but it's in impeccable shape. So when you're playing on tour, Randy, you have this camaraderie with the guys, and there's all sorts of chatter about courses, about towns, and things like that. And so far, we've knocked it out of the park in every aspect.
I love how you pro golfers, you remember holes so well, and the way you play
it's
holes.
A sickness, Randy.
It's fantastic. But for somebody that either hasn't really paid close attention or hasn't even been to the Ascension Charity Classic, somebody that you'd say, okay, go look at this hole and watch the way it's played. Is there a hole on the course that you like?
Oh gosh. I would say there's a couple of there's a lot of interesting holes. The 18th at Norwood is a great finish. It's a very difficult hole. There's some OB and tennis courts on the right. I've visited there quite often over the course
see me
of
do that too.
Yeah, we've been over there. The 5th hole is the number 1 handicap hole. It's beautiful. It's got a creek that meanders along the right and bunkers on the left, and then the creek comes back across the fairway and then sits to the left of the greens. So you have a chance to hit it in the water, 2 different times, and to see the way the guys play that hole, I think would be interesting. And the other one is number 11. It's a 300-yard par 4. It's very narrow. There's OB on the right, and it's really well bunkered, and has a very, very severe green. So it's interesting. Padraig Harrington on Sunday last year, Randy, from 304 yards, hit his 3-wood on the green, on the surface.
Amazing.
I know. That makes me mad, man. How does he do that? He's hitting it longer now at 52 than he is, or 53 now than he did when he played on the regular tour.
It's truly amazing.
And he won 3 major championships. Yeah, there's a lot to hate about him.
Yeah, and I want to touch on some of the other golfers, but one of the guys that I have really enjoyed watching follow around, and it's so different than watching on TV, is Ernie Els. And now when you watch him in person, you can see why they call him the Big Easy.
Oh, his rhythm and tempo and his golf swing. It makes you jealous. He's everyone says to me he's a much bigger man than they thought, and it's really his girth. He's probably got a 40-inch waist or something. He's 6'3" and weighs probably 250, 260 pounds. Not a lot of fat, maybe a little more now that we're aging, but his golf swing is just beautiful. And he talks, it's fun. I had a friend said, I ran into Ernie Els at the Ascension Charity Classic, and I said, it's nice. It's much chaotic than a regular tour event. There's not a security. He goes, no, I literally ran into him. We turned the corner and he about knocked me over. And so it's a chance to get up close and personal with a lot of the Hall of Fame type golfers.
So, as I mentioned, you were the first person ever to take a swing, first hole, first grouping on the first day of the tournament. And now here we head into year 3. What's your favorite thing about the Ascension Charity Classic from a golfer's perspective and from a participant's perspective?
Okay, so for me, Randy, this what Nick Ragone and Steve Spratt and the Ascension family over there have done checks every box for me, both professionally and personally. I grew up in the North County area, so all the monies we raise are impacting the communities that I grew up in. I also caddied at Norwood as a kid, so now I get to play, a PGA Tour Champions event on the golf course that I grew up on. That never happens.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and then just to be able to compete again. I'll be really, really nervous, and I love that feeling, and so it's just really special. And the amount of money that we're raising just keeps growing and growing each year.
I was talking to some of the APGA golfers that were in town, the Advocates Professional Golf Association, which benefits and gives opportunities to minority golfers, and they were astounded by the way they were treated here by Ascension and everybody, Doherty Business Solutions, and everybody here, as opposed to other places. And I know that the Champions Tour golfers really appreciate the way they're treated when they come into town.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, that's one of the things that makes these tournaments go up and up in everybody's opinions, and Doherty Business Solutions has been a huge friend of mine. Ron and his team, they support my show on ESPN and my podcasts and things like that. But this diversity in their access point program, I should say, it's a game changer. There's these African-American women, are mostly women, are making $55,000 to $60,000 a year, Randy, right out of high school. So it's a program that Ron and Doherty started, and now they're rolling it out in Atlanta and Minneapolis. But we had Ken Bentley, who is the commissioner of the APGA, on the show, and he talked about St. Louis being the top of the heap for the community involvement, for everything, the way the players, the hospitality, the golf course, the condition of the course. And we had their first ever press conference here. So, we thought, how do these press conferences usually go? Kenny goes, hell, I don't know. This is the first one I've ever had. Yeah.
How does when we get to the week of the Ascension Charity Classic, and specifically the weekend, I walk around, and I've been to several regular tour events and several majors. And so from my perspective, I look at it and I say, man, this really stacks up well to a regular tour event. How do you feel about it?
It does. And what we're referring to, folks, is the corporate involvement. Mm-hmm. So when you go to a regular tour event, you're going to see a lot of hospitality, a lot of corporate involvement. When you go to the Champions Tour, typically there's just a small amount around the 18th green. Several tournaments will have some around the 17th green as well, but we have almost the entire back nine engaged. So I don't know what the number is, but I know our first year we had 63, and I think that led the number on the Champions Tour, and I know we have way more now in year 3. So it's just like St. Louis. So Randy, the corporate citizens, they're so strong. They support in so many different ways, and so do the spectators. We're going to probably have more spectators at the Ascension Charity Classic this year than they had at the U.S. Open at LA Country Club on Sunday, which is insane, but it talks a lot about St. Louis.
Okay, so Jay's going to be playing this year, 8th, 9th, and 10th out at Norwood. You can get tickets and all of the availability again at ascensioncharityclassic.com. And Jay, it's always great to talk to you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. I hope to see everybody out there, and I know I'll see you as well.
You will definitely see me. Our thanks to Jay, our thanks to Nick Ragone, and thanks to you for joining us here on the 101 on Sports. I'm Randy Karraker, and we'll see you next week here on Fox 2.